Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. Now basically what we're going to be doing today it's a bit of a different video, but basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at all the current transfers which have gone through for the championship, and we're basically going to look at every single club individually. And what I want you to do is, after you've watched the video, who do you think has made the best transfer business so far? Obviously there's still a lot of time to go through this transfer window, but so far we're going to be looking at each individual club and basically dissecting their transfer business which they've done so far. And also guys, whoever you support, if that is in the championship, let me know in the comments down below the players you think you still need to bring in. So that could be a specific player, or it could be a certain position you still think you need to strengthen. I'd be very interested to know. But without further ado, let's just get into the transfers. So the first thing we have to talk about is of course Aston Villa, recently relegated from the Premier League, and the first signing we have to talk about is of course Elphick. He's just arrived from Bournemouth. I think he'll be an excellent signing for Aston Villa. If you look at it on the whole, I think when you're a team that gets relegated from the Premier League and you're coming down to the championship, you need players, you need a full squad really, of players who are going to buy into the project and who are willing to fight for that club really, because you don't need the players who are just there because they're getting paid by the club, and you really need to get rid of all the dead wood at the club. I think that's what Villa need to do, and I think so far with the signings they've made, I think they're going in the right direction for that. They're bringing in players with championship experience, which, you know, the reason they got relegated from the Premier League, half of it was because they were bringing in loads of foreign players. They're not going down that route anymore. They're going down the very English route so far, and that could work out for them. And then guys, the next team we have to talk about is of course Barnsley. So a big reason Barnsley actually got promoted last season was because of their loan players they had. They had quite a few loan players who played a big role in that squad, so it'll be interesting to see what Barnsley actually do to address that situation, whether they go back in for those loan players or they look elsewhere for other deals. I know people like Brownhill, he's already moved off and they've obviously missed out on him now, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. Obviously they have brought in George Moncur. I believe he was going for a fee of around 500k. I think for about that price, you know, obviously he was in League 1 last season. I'm fairly certain that he'll be able to make the step up to the championship. So Barnsley fans, what do you still need? Let me know in the comments down below. And then Birmingham is the next team we have to of course talk about, guys. Birmingham have been doing some good business so far. I'd say they've obviously brought in Vaughan after he was on loan last season. It was an interesting one actually, because I don't actually believe that Vaughan scored whilst he was on loan at Birmingham, but they took up the option to buy him on the permanent, so that's what they've done. I believe he just signed on a 1-year contract. So what do you think of the signing of Vaughan, guys? Let me know in the comments down below if you're a Birmingham fan. I'd be very interested to know. And they've also bolstered their squad in certain other positions as well, especially in midfield with is it Tesh coming in or something like that. He's just signed for them, and from Nottingham Forest. I think he'll be a good addition to the midfield, and it'll be an interesting season for Birmingham, I think. Blackburn Rovers have also been strengthening their squad lately, especially in the attacking sense of the word. They've definitely been strengthening in those areas. They've obviously brought in Anthony Stokes, who should be a good buy for them, and as well they've added Liam Feeney as well. I think a couple of people may have overlooked this signing, but I actually rate Liam Feeney. I think he's a very hit and miss sort of player, but I think he'll add a good amount of pace to this Blackburn side, which before probably was lacking a bit of pace, and I think Feeney will be a good buy for them. And Blackburn next season, I'm not really sure how Blackburn will do next season really, because honestly, I could see them lingering around relegation, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they finish mid-table to high mid-table. Brentford have also been doing some very interesting business as well. They've obviously brought in the Daniel Bentley keeper with lots of potential from Southend United, and a lot of clubs were interested in Daniel Bentley, and it's interesting that he actually chose Brentford to go to. Whether he'll be their #1 next season, I'm not actually sure, because they do of course have Button in the team at the moment. He was fantastic when he came to Deepdale last season, and they've also brought in Romain Sawyers as well. If you watch my Q&A, I'd say if we could sign one of the questions was if Preston could sign 3 players, who would they be? One of the players I actually said was Romain Sawyers. I believe he's more than capable of making the step up to the championship. But I think what's going to be interesting for Brentford is whether they'll be able to keep hold of Judge or not. Brighton as well have been quite active in the transfer window so far. I think their biggest move so far is bringing in Glenn Murray on loan. I think that a player of his class, he'll score goals in any championship side in my opinion. So to get him on loan, obviously they have got rid of Bobby Zamora now, so to replace him with Glenn Murray, who I think will bring more goals to their side, it can only be a good addition really. Bristol City have also been doing some business. They've been linked with a lot of players so far this transfer window, Bristol City, and they're definitely not afraid to spend money. I think that's fair to say, but Tomlin's obviously coming on the permanent now. He was on loan at Bristol City towards the end of last season, and he did well for them on that, and I think it'll be a good signing for them as well. I think in the championship Championship, that's where Tomlin's most comfortable, really. Obviously, normally playing just in behind the striker. I think he'll do well at Bristol City. And they've also brought in a couple of midfielders as well in O'Neill and Brownhill, who two different types of midfielders, but they'll probably do well at that club. And then next of all is Burton Albion. I think Burton Albion will be a very interesting one next season. Whether they'll manage to avoid the drop or not, I'm not so sure, really, because they've not really done that much business. However, the business that they have done, I think, will be beneficial to their squad. They brought in Ben Turner from, I believe, Cardiff City. I think he'll be a very good addition to their back four, but if they are wanting to survive, I think they'll need to do a lot more business. And Cardiff City as well, they've been quite active in this transfer window so far. They've brought Immers back into the squad after he was on loan there last season. But what's interesting about this is they've actually signed 2 strikers from outside of England, which is very interesting. It's always quite a risk when you do that. It can pay off or not. But they've actually signed 2 strikers who are from outside of England. And obviously the strikers they've had going out the door are both Kevin Jones and Owen Doyle as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these new signings integrate into this Cardiff City system next year. And then the next team, guys, is Derby County, and Derby have actually made no new incomings yet, which is quite interesting, really, because in the last transfer window they were probably one of the most active clubs in that. They spent a lot of money in the last transfer window, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with the rest of the window, really, because obviously they've made no new incomings yet. Their goal this season has to be promotion yet again, and if they're going to go for that really this year with the tough competition they're going to face, I think they're going to have to bring in some new players, and they've been linked with Callum O'Dowda from Oxford United, so it'll be interesting to see if they follow through with that deal. And Fulham, honestly, I think Fulham may struggle next season, if I'm being completely honest. They have had a complete wipeout of players. They've got rid of absolutely loads of players this year, including Moussa Dembele to Celtic. I think that'll be a massive loss for them. He was such a good player for them last season, of course, and being such a young player as well, he's just got so much potential, and I think they'll definitely miss him. They've obviously already spent almost 3 million in this transfer window, Fulham, so they're definitely not afraid to spend money. But I think what will be massive for Fulham is whether they can keep hold of Ross McCormack. He's been linked with a number of Championship clubs so far. If they can keep hold of Ross McCormack, I think they should be okay. But if they lose Ross McCormack and don't replace the quality that he brings to their side, I honestly think they're going to be struggling next season. And Huddersfield have been incredibly active in this transfer window so far. I think they've brought in, if not the most, they're definitely one of the most active Championship clubs in this transfer window so far. Lots of new incomings, and lots of them, of course, being German as well. That's, of course, to be expected with their German manager, David Wagner. And it'll be interesting to see how all those new signings settle in, really. And then Ipswich Town, guys. So far, they've really just added youth so far to their team, really. And they've not really added any much first-team quality, if I'm being completely honest, but they have added a couple of youth players now, so if they do want to reach out and get the playoffs this year, I think they're going to have to do a bit more business, honestly. And then Leeds United, yet again, another club which has been very busy so far in this transfer window, and I think they've done some very good business, if I'm being completely honest. I think they brought in some good players, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how they get on under Gary Monk. I really do rate Gary Monk as a manager, and I think he'll do well in the Championship, if I'm being honest. But obviously the big departure coming from Leeds is Lewis Cook. He went to Bournemouth for 5.5 million, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on without him. Obviously, he was a good player for them last season. And then Newcastle United are not messing around this year, guys. They've currently spent 25 million in the Championship, which is just absolutely obscene, guys. And we've still got like 2 months left of the transfer window, so God knows how much they're actually going to spend in the end, guys. But so far, I think the money they've spent probably will be well invested. Obviously, they brought Dwight Gale in. I think he'll be a good striker for the Championship. I think he'll be a good buy. And they've also brought in Matt Ritchie as well from Bournemouth. I think he'll be an excellent buy for the Championship. He knows the league well, and I think he'll be an excellent addition to that Newcastle squad, really. And honestly, I can't see a world where Newcastle aren't getting promoted, if I'm being honest. And then Norwich City, guys, yet another team who currently haven't brought anyone in, guys. And it's actually interesting with Norwich, really, because they've had really the same core of players now for the last probably 3 or 4 seasons. And it'll be interesting to see if they actually add to it this year, because obviously they've had a few people going out the door. They've obviously lost Nathan Redmond to Southampton. I think he'll be a bit of a loss to them. So it'll be interesting to see, where they finish next season in correlation to how they do in this transfer window now. And next up is Nottingham Forest, guys. Currently, they've brought in about three players so far, and it'll be interesting to see how these new signings settle in, really. They've brought in quite a few foreign players now, Nottingham Forest, and so it'll be interesting to see how they settle in with their new manager that they currently have. But what's interesting about Nottingham Forest now is that their transfer embargo has actually been lifted. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually spend their money in this transfer window. Now they don't have that looming over their shoulders, which they have done for the previous years. So I think it'll be an interesting season for Nottingham Forest, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm not actually sure where they're going to finish. It could be low, could be high. Let me know in the comments down below where you think. And next of all is my club, Preston North End. So far, we've added a lot so far. And really what we've added to our squad is we've added depth and a sense of diversity really to the team, and which is probably well needed. And we've also added quality as well in players like Ben Pringle. So hopefully they'll all hit the ground running and they'll be able to gel into this squad. And what must be said is we're going into this season, we have a much bigger squad than we did last season. So it'll be interesting to see how Grayson actually manages a much larger squad of players. But I think yet again, I've still got the feeling that we may struggle for goals next season. But obviously that's to be seen. If Mackinock and Doyle can hit the ground running, maybe that won't be the case. But I've still got the slight feeling that we may struggle for goals. And Preston fans, what do you still think we need? I still think we probably need a right back, and that would probably be me happy for the transfer window really. But let me know in the comments down below. I'd be very interested to know. And QPR, guys, so far in this transfer window, they have spent 2.8 million on their new incomings. But what's interesting about QPR is their outgoings at this point in time. Obviously, they received around about 5 million for Matty Phillips, and they also received around about 5 million for Leroy First. So that's 10 million altogether, which is a lot of money in the Championship. So it'll be interesting to see how they reinvest that money, really. I've seen quite a few QPR fans, and they don't seem too bothered to have lost Matt Phillips, if I'm being honest. Obviously, on his day, he's an absolutely fantastic player, but I think it was just his lack of consistency really for what he showed at QPR. I don't think they'll be too overly bothered that they lost him, and maybe a couple of years, like if they sold him last year, they could have got a bigger price for him. But 5 million isn't bad for Matt Phillips in my opinion. So QPR fans, what do you still need? Let me know in the comments down below. And Reading, the big news about Reading is they've recently received 5 million for, I think, Chibola. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name, but the big centre mid that they have, they received 5 million for him. So it'll be interesting to see how they reinvest that money really, because obviously he's a bit of a prospect. He's still a young player for Reading, and obviously now he has left. It'll be interesting to see what they actually do with that money and how they reinvest it into the squad really. So definitely an interesting one with Reading. Obviously they're under new management now, so it'll be interesting to see how Reading actually do this season, whether they can push on this season to, you know, be reaching in and around the playoffs. I'm not so sure, but Reading fans, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be very interested to know. And Rotherham United, it's a bit of a funny one, this one really, because so far they've only had one incoming player, and they have released quite a few players in the summer. So I think that honestly, I think they'll struggle next season, Rotherham. Obviously, last season they were quite lucky to stay up. Obviously, they went on a magnificent run towards the end of the season. But in all honesty, they probably were quite fortunate to stay up. And I do think that if they are going to avoid the drop again for another season, because they've done it for the last 2 seasons, they've just avoided the drop for the last 2 seasons. I think if they're going to do it again, I think that they're going to need to invest a bit more money into their team, and or find a couple bargains here and there, because I don't think the current squad really, I'm not sure that has enough to stay up. I may be wrong, but let me know in the comments down below what you think of that, Rotherham fans. And then Sheffield Wednesday, guys. Obviously, the big incoming for Sheffield Wednesday is Stephen Fletcher. I think for the Championship, he should be an excellent buy, and him acquainted with the strikers which they currently have at Sheffield Wednesday, they have some fantastic attacking options now. They've got Fletcher in the squad, they've got Hooper, they've got Forestieri, and honestly, they can do danger in the Championship. They can do loads of damage in the Championship. So it'll be interesting to see how their manager actually integrates those 3 attacking options into the same team. Whether they play Forestieri in behind or they rest one of them now and again. It'll be interesting to see what they actually do, because Sheffield Wednesday have a team that's just full of quality now. So it'll be interesting to see if they add anything else to it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sheffield Wednesday had a very good season next year. And then Wigan Athletic, guys. So far, Wigan have just bolstered their defensive options, really. They've not really gone into strengthening their attack yet. They've just been focusing on their defence with 2 new defenders coming in. And so it'll be interesting to see what Wigan actually do, really, because when a promoted club comes up to the Championship, you never really know how they're going to do, really, because obviously they're carrying with them the momentum of promotion. So I think that Wigan's season should be an interesting one, if I'm being honest. So Wigan fans, where do you think you'll finish in this season? I'd be very interested to know. And do you think you need to add a bit more quality to your attacking options? And then, guys, last but not least is Wolves. And so far, Wolves have actually also added no new transfers so far. So, I'm not sure what to think of that, really, because obviously Wolves have been a team where the last probably 2 years they've been lingering around the playoffs, and they really do want to make that next step into the playoffs. Ever since they've been promoted from League One, they want to make that next step into the playoffs, but so far it's just not happened for them. So, Wolves fans, what do you need to break into the playoffs this year? And do you think you need to invest so much money in that? Obviously, Obviously, they have been redeveloping their stadium lately, so I'm sure that'll have taken a bit of money out of the transfer fund, but it'll be an interesting season for Wolves, I think, in all honesty. So guys, that will now wrap up this video. So at the end of it, guys, after you've watched all of it, who do you think has done the best transfer business so far? I'd be very interested to know. And also, guys, what do you think your club still needs to do? What players do you think your club still needs to bring in, or what positions do you think you still need to strengthen? Let me know in the comments down below, but guys, I'd be very interested to know. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, make sure you do leave a like on this video. It really does help me out. Make sure you subscribe for more Championship content. Make sure you check out all links in the description down below. But apart from that, I will see you all in the next one.